Away.
All right, good evening. Good evening, welcome. Today is Thursday, August 13th. We would like to welcome you to Xenia City Council meeting. At this time, we are calling the meeting to order. We will have an invocation by Mayor Mays and followed by the Pledge of Allegiance by myself. Did want to state that I did wear my mask coming in and I've had it on, but for the sake of enunciation tonight, I'm distanced apart, so I'm going to have it off during the meeting, but I'll put it back on as soon as we're done. If everyone would please rise.
Let's pray. Our gracious Lord, thank you so much for another day that you have given us. Thank you for another opportunity to be here and to come together to make decisions on behalf of the city. Father, we are simply stewards of the city and the resources here, and I pray, God, for wisdom for each of us, for discernment, for clarity, for good communication, that we can have honest and open communication with respect and kindness this evening. We pray for our fire department, our police department, the people who are still in public service out working and on call this evening. Father, we ask for safety for each one of them and that you would protect them at every turn. Thank you for our appointed officials who are with us tonight. We are grateful for the very hard work that they do. And I pray, God, that as they present to us, that we will be able to listen well and understand what's going on. We pray, Lord, for our community, for Xenia, in our state and our nation. And Lord, we just we have a lot of needs, a lot of hurt, a lot of emotions flying around. So, Father, I pray that each of us would take time to turn to you and to bring our hurts to you first and to allow you to soften our hearts so that our words are soft and tender and gentle with each other, so that we can show the respect and kindness to each other, even in our disagreements, that we can find ways to respect each other in our humanity. We are broken people and we make a lot of mistakes, so may we have forgiveness and grace for each other. We give all this to you in your name, Lord. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen. Right.
Thank you very much, Mayor Mays, for the invocation. This time, I'd like to ask for a roll call, please.
Vice President Wallace.
Here.
Councilman Strickland.
Here.
Councilwoman Dean.
Here.
Councilman Branham.
Here.
Councilman Dean. Mayor Mays.
Here.
President Smith.
Present. Next on our agenda is the approval of minutes from our July 23rd, 2020 meeting. Do I have a motion to accept the minutes as written, please?
So moved.
Moved by the mayor. Do I have a second to accept the minutes?
I'll second.
Seconded by Vice President Wallace. Is there any additions or corrections anyone would like to make notes to the minutes? See no additions or corrections. Could I get a roll call to accept, please?
Vice President Wallace.
Aye.
Councilman Strickland.
Abstain.
Councilwoman Dean.
Aye.
Councilman Branham.
Aye.
Mayor Mays.
Aye.
President Smith.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you very much.
Mr. President, we didn't do it before the minutes, but can we excuse Councilman Dean, please?
We can, but it's not necessary. He's actually on his way here. He's just going to be late.
Okay, okay.
Thank you. Mhm. All right, next on the agenda is a special presentation. This is a proclamation for James Heitman and Jim Fry. This was previously recorded tonight at 5:30 to help with space here in the City Administration Council chambers so that we could properly social distance. So, Mr. Paget, are we ready for that? You guys can all watch the monitor for this. And I think while we're waiting on that, Mr. City Manager, would you like to expand on this?
Yeah, so we had two local residents who were neighbors during an emergency, a fire emergency here locally, and they stepped into action and helped save the life of an elderly woman who was still inside one of those structures. And so we want to take an opportunity today through the mayor to recognize them. And I think we're queuing up here, and we'll show you that presentation.
And Jim Fry, which cannot be with us this evening. These gentlemen saved a woman's life the night of June 29, 2020, which is here with us this evening. And Jim Fry, which cannot be with us this evening.
There we go.
Good evening. I'm Fire Chief Ken Rigsby, here with Deputy Chief Mike Logan. I want to recognize some heroic actions taken by Xenia's own James Heitman, which is here with us this evening, and Jim Fry, which cannot be with us this evening. These gentlemen saved a woman's life the night of June 29, 2020, after pulling her from a burning home on North Monroe Drive. Mayor Mays has a proclamation in their honor.
Thank you, sir. Be it proclaimed, whereas on Monday, June 29th, 2020, a fire broke out in the living room of the home located at 735 North Monroe Drive, and bystanders were concerned that an elderly woman lived in the home and was likely inside at the time. And whereas, upon the Xenia Fire Division's arrival at the scene, there was heavy smoke inside the residence and the conditions inside were very dangerous to anyone inside. And whereas Mr. James Heitman and Mr. Jim Fry circled the structure, breaking out windows to relieve the heavy smoke, and were instrumental in coaxing the elderly resident from the home. And whereas Mr. Heitman and Mr. Fry stayed with the resident until paramedics took over her care, and she was transported to a nearby hospital where she was treated and released the same day. And whereas instead of standing by and waiting for the fire division personnel to arrive, Mr. Heitman's and Mr. Fry's quick thinking and courageous action can be directly attributed to the residents' favorable outcome. Now therefore, I, Sarah J. Mays, Mayor for the City of Xenia, Ohio, do hereby proclaim Thursday, August 13, 2020, as James Heitman and Jim Fry Day in the City of Xenia, and ask that you join me in honoring them for demonstrating bravery and heroism to save a woman's life. Thank you so much.
Well, on behalf of the City of Xenia Fire Division, City Manager's Office, we would love to commend these guys, Mr. Heitman and Mr. Fry, for their bravery and quick thinking and quick actions to save this woman's life. You could have sat back and waited for the fire crews to arrive, but instead you jumped in to help. Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thank our IT department for putting this video together. Literally videotaped that less than 30 minutes ago. So thank you for putting that together, and for those that were watching, we appreciate your patience during that space right there. Our next item on the agenda is audience comments. At this time, we ask that if anyone would like to come and address the City Council, to please come to the podium, state your name and address for the record. Limit your comments 3 to 4 minutes, please. Seeing none, I will also mention that our city clerk has not received any emails addressing any audience comments for tonight. So we're going to move on to old business. Our first item is item A, ordinance 2020-19, a second reading. This is enacting sections 238.08 titled Use of Division Emblems of the City Administrative Code as contained in Part 2 of the codified ordinances of the City of Xenia. This was originally introduced by Councilman Dean at our last meeting. In his absence, would someone else like to make the motion, please?
I'll do it.
Okay.
Still Councilman.
Introduced now by Councilwoman Dean.
I'll second it.
And a second by Vice President Wallace. Any discussion regarding ordinance 2020-19? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Vice President Wallace,
Aye.
Councilman Scrivens?
Aye.
Councilwoman Dean?
Aye.
Councilman Branham?
Aye.
Mayor Mays?
Aye.
President Smith?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you very much. Old business item B is Resolution 2020-T, also a second reading. This authorizes a 3-year lease of space in the City Administrative Building to the Regional Income Tax Agency. This was introduced by Vice President Wallace on 7/23/20.
And I have moved the passage, Mr. President.
Thank you.
And again, I'd like to applaud we'll give them a lot of applause between now and the end of the year since we're not giving them more money. The staff for the thoughtful and wise move on doing this matter. These folks needed the space, and we had some wasted space in our building, and we used this as an opportunity. It's just very, very commendable work on the part of all of the appointed officials.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vice President Wallace. Motion by Vice President Wallace and accolades to the city. Do we have a second, please?
I'll second that.
Second by, I think, actually, Councilwoman Dean had her hand
Oh,
up.
sorry, go ahead.
So, any other comments or questions regarding this?
Just real quick, Mr. President, if you don't mind, I was just curious, do we have any status on the update with employees, local city employees with that transition to Rita, if you don't mind?
Yeah, sure. Rita did go through an interview process. We had 3 employees that would be laid off if not offered a job by Rita, but all 3 did receive offer letters. All 3 did accept those offers, so there's not any layoff process that's required as a part of this. Those employees are able to start at a wage that's either at or above where they are today. And they're still in PERS, so their retirement is kept intact. There's no change there. So all in all, I think it's worked out well for those employees. And we are grateful to those employees because they handled this situation very well. They were very open in their communication with us as we were with them. And we worked together to make sure that that they weren't negatively impacted and that the city's interests were protected as well. So that went very well.
Awesome. Thank you for that update.
That's great.
Thank you,
Great job.
Councilman Branham. Thank you for that update, Mr. Finance Director. Yes.
I'd also
Councilman
like to
Scrivens.
compliment the city, especially the finance director and his leadership in getting this done. Such a smooth transition. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Positive comments from Councilman Scrivens. Anyone else like to add in? Seeing none, can we get a roll call, please?
Vice President Wallace?
Aye.
Councilman Scrivens?
Aye.
Councilwoman Dean?
Aye.
Councilman Branham?
Aye.
Mayor Mays?
Aye.
President Smith?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you very much. Our next item is Resolution 2020-U, also a second reading. This is authorizing a 15-year lease of the upper floor of Xenia Station to the Xenia Area Chamber of Commerce. This was introduced by Vice President Wallace on July 23rd.
And I move approval.
Thank you. Move for passage
Passage.
by Vice President. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Councilman Scrivens. Any comments or questions regarding this lease to our area Chamber of Commerce?
Did we, I have
Yes.
one question. Do we have any further information on the future of the existing building?
Yeah, I think so. I don't think their board's made a final decision, but I think they are going to make it available for purchase.
Available for purchase?
They'll put it on the market, and we'll hope to sell it and then be able to use those proceeds as a emergency fund and an event fund and so forth, was my understanding.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Now, maybe now that they're out of there, we can clean that esplanade up with the weeds and the leaves that's hanging around there. It looks trashy. It needs to be cleaned. If you go sell a property, curb appeal makes the difference. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Councilman Scrivens. Any other comments or questions? I would like to comment, while other cities are having issues with their local Chamber of Commerce, it's great that we partner with them.
That's right.
We're on the same page, so I think this is a win situation for them, and we'll get some occupancy in Xenia Station, which is sorely needed, which could possibly help reduce some vandalism in that. So thank you very much. See no other questions or comments, I'd like to ask for a roll call on this item, please.
Vice President Wallace?
Aye.
Councilman Scrivens?
Aye.
Councilwoman Dean?
Aye.
Councilman Branham?
Aye.
Mayor Mays?
Aye.
President Smith?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you very much. Our next item is public hearings. We have none on the agenda for tonight, so we're going to move to new business. Item A is an ordinance titled 2020-20. This is an introduction. This is amending sections 104406 and 104407, adopting chapter 1048 and repealing in its entirety the existing chapter of 1048 of the City of Xenia Streets, Utilities, and Public Service Codes as contained in the codified ordinances. Mr. City Manager, would you like to explain this?
Thank you, sir. Staff presents council with ordinance 2020-20 this evening, and we are recommending introduction for consideration. As indicated, the ordinance would amend sections within the Xenia codified ordinances, which include 1044.06 and 44.07, as well as entirely repealing and replacing with new language section 1048. These code sections establish standards and procedures related to the Xenia wastewater treatment system, and specifically the city's industrial pretreatment program. Our city, like all municipalities in Ohio, is regulated by the Ohio EPA for the purpose of safeguarding our wastewater treatment systems and the personnel that conduct those services through the standards that limit various types of materials that might be introduced into our treatment system, specifically with respect to industrial contaminants. Recently, the Ohio EPA completed an audit of Xenia's industrial pretreatment program, and while for the most part program elements were found to be appropriate, there were noted deficiencies in section 1044 and 1048. Your agenda report for this item details the specific changes that are being recommended for section 1044, and we deem these necessary to update our code and bring it into alignment with what the state requires. However, for section 1048, we believe that the best approach would be to repeal that section and replace it in its entirety instead of going through numerous line item changes. We just feel that this is a better approach. Utility staff and law director have reviewed state requirements and researched best practices among other communities regarding these regulatory functions. We've come up with this replacement language as we are presenting here this evening in the amended section 1048, and we feel that this will be compliant and generally more up to date. In developing this amended language, we have, of course, worked to balance compliance and safety standards with a sensitivity to the business needs of our community, which includes, with this language, providing some degree of administrative flexibility where appropriate. So we are recommending introduction this evening for council's consideration of the language so that we can make sure that this is compliant.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. Do we have anyone that would like to care to introduce this?
I'll be happy to introduce it. I am a little curious as to where Mr. Berger is. We may have had a question or two, and I know you can handle them, but I like looking at him.
In the, if you'll notice, we've had a little fewer or a little less regular attendance from our department heads in the interest of keeping us compliant with the assembly limitations. So I've given him the night off this evening, noting in particular this is introduction at this point. So as we move forward with the second reading, we'll have an opportunity to ask more questions.
Mr. President, also, if I might just like to compliment Mr. Berger and his department and the law department, because when you get to going through legalese, that's a job. And I see they struck a lot of language and inserting new language to bring us into compliance with the EPA. And I just want to say thank you to everybody who was involved on this. This was not an easy task.
No, I'm sure.
If I could, Mr. President, just in responding to that, and I would echo that sentiment, council will note that we have been working with the law director to incrementally review sections or chapters within our code. Many of the sections in our Xenia codified ordinances, these chapters have been in place, in some cases, language for 40, 50 years and have not been updated. And while it's good to be consistent and it's good to not constantly change requirements in your community, you also have to be contemporary, because state statutes and regulations do change really from year to year. And so just again, giving credit to our law department, our department heads that have participated in that process. It is a lot of work. If you look at this in detail, it's a lot of work to go through. But again, this is intended to protect our community and to protect council as well, to make sure that you're doing your job and that on behalf of the citizens that we are compliant with the state. So.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. Thank you, Mr. Councilman Scrivens and Thank you, Vice President Wallace. City Clerk, did you get that, Vice President? Introduce that. Thank you. Our next item, item B, Resolution 2020-V, also an introduction. This is providing for assessments to be levied and authorizes the Finance Director to certify those assessments to the Greene County Auditor. Mr. Duke.
Thank you, Council President. From time to time, it is necessary for the city to certify assessments to the county auditor when other efforts to collect some of these fees have not been successful. The auditor requests that we submit those assessments via resolution. For this go-around, we will not be requesting any utility assessments go forward and be certified to the county. Some of the provisions that had prohibited us from disconnecting over the last couple of months have kind of thrown a wrench into that schedule. We have now sent out letters to those individuals who are delinquent, and I would envision that later this year we'll bring back another round of assessments where we will assess some utility accounts, but we aren't requesting that any of those be assessed here this evening. There are three different categories of assessments. We are requesting that council certify to the auditor here tonight. The first is for weeds, trees, and shrubs. That's a total of $114,909.65. Another for demolition, that's $1,080. And also for trash cleanup, that's $10,065. So we were requesting that council introduce that resolution this evening.
Thank you very much, Mr. Duke. If anyone that would like to introduce Resolution 2020-V,
I can introduce that.
introduced by the mayor.
I do have a question. Is it appropriate at this time?
Yes, thank you.
Now, all of these assessments, we're going to the county, and then they will be levied against the property so that when title searches are done, they will manifest, and then we'll hopefully get our money if there's in the sale or transfer of the property.
That's correct. They're assessed to the property taxes, and we would receive those dollars at some point when those taxes are paid. Usually, it's paid as every year. On some of those that are delinquent, it may be when this property is finally sold, but usually we end up collecting on those taxes. It varies, what the timeline on that return is.
Now, do they add interest as
The county does assess a fee, not interest, but they assess a fee of 5% to our assessment.
Okay. So they get a little something, we get a little
They
something.
do. It's basically their fee for collecting on our behalf. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Duke.
Okay.
I know that, like you said, the timeline presents itself to a lot of challenges in collecting these. Just curious, what percentage would you say we actually ever get?
Off the top of my head, I would estimate that we probably receive about 60% of what we certify in the following year. And so that balance does grow a little bit each year as we set that up as a receivable on our financials, but I would estimate somewhere in the neighborhood of about 60% that we collect in the next year.
But over time,
Over time, we will collect 100% of it,
yeah.
Well, unless there's a foreclosure and there's some, abatement of the tax at some point.
but if the property changes hands, or if it's moves, then we still will get our money out of the,
Typically, if the property
Right,
sells for less than what the, outstanding taxes are, then those are apportioned to the different communities, based on what percentage of tax they're owed. So it is contingent, obviously, on the property having a value and selling for a value that exceeds what's due in tax and assessments, but usually we collect the majority of that. But there are certainly circumstances where we don't collect that entire amount.
Mr. City Manager?
Yeah, to that point, there are far too many examples of properties in our community where there have been outstanding delinquencies in the tax. In some cases, it's the tax themselves. In other cases, it's a result of these types of items that have been added. But in some cases, these date back 5, 10, 15 or more years.
Right.
And that is a conversation that we've been having. In fact, I had a lot of discussion with Mr. Brodsky and Mr. Forstner about this issue, that with county officials, the county treasurer, county auditor, because it I think to us it becomes an equity issue in addition to the delinquency that these properties often have. I mean, when our other taxpayers are paying their property tax on a regular basis, we have individuals who own property and go a decade or more having never paid their taxes, much less any assessments. That's not right to the taxpayers that are doing
No.
that. So we've begun to explore that conversation a little more aggressively with county leaders and actually have had a good response. So I think you'll see some action on that in the near future.
Thank you, Mr. City
Of course,
Manager.
there is one point that I'd like to make, Mr. President, and this gives me, affords me an opportunity and an opening. I got a call and a certified letter last week from the U.S. Department of Agriculture on our wetland project that runs at the back of Doral Drive because somebody thinks it's the city dump. And they're dumping weeds and solid waste and trees and limbs and so forth over there. And of course, the church has the property leased to USDA, but USDA is holding us responsible for getting that debris cleaned up. And I haven't heard back from Mr. Forstner and Mr. Judge, what's that last name?
Muterspaw.
Judge Muterspaw, to find out if they have any clue as to who did it and who we might go after. But, you know, we're kind of up and holding the bag and up that creek they talk about because we're going to be held responsible. But somebody else doing it, we'd like to kind of find out if we could who is, so that we can go after them.
Yeah, I think from the city's perspective, you know, there's certainly, we'd like to hold the individual or individuals that are doing that accountable. There are certain pathways we can maneuver to assist with that process. I'll make sure that we have our code enforcement, property maintenance folks circle back around with you offline, kind of give you an update on what the thinking is.
Awesome. So we got this taken care of.
All right, thank you very much. And welcome, Councilman Dean. Thank you. Our next item is Resolution 2020-W. So our next item is an introduction, 2020-W. This is authorizing the sale of city-owned property located at 135 East Church Street to former Xenia LLC. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, sir. I do have a little bit longer introduction to this than normal, but I just wanted to give some context. This is sort of a unique agenda item. So, of course, as we've discussed with council previously, a unique offer has been submitted for the acquisition and reuse of the former Y facility located on Church Street. The YMCA is one of the anchor tenants at the new Reach Center, and as part of that Reach Center development plan, the city, of course, took possession of that former Y rec facility back in April of 2019. The city has been marketing the site through Colliers International since shortly after that acquisition. While we've had some serious inquiries up to this point, no formal offer has been fully submitted for consideration by council. So I'd like to get into a little bit of background on the prospective reuse that we've been presented with. Late last year, staff was approached by Dr. Jeremy Irvin, who has been pursuing the development of a regional charter school with a focus in science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics, which is known as a STEM charter school. Dr. Irvin and his team have been engaged in a multi-year effort to establish a Xenia-based nonprofit tuition-free STEAM academy, and early on expressed an interest in this former YMCA property as a possible host location for this endeavor. Dr. Irvin has advanced the planning of the STEAM Academy substantially, including recruiting a team of advisors, initiating the process of state certification and business plans, and commenced efforts to raise the proper financing that they'll need. So obviously securing a site and beginning the necessary preparations at that site is a major and timely task that's necessary to advance the Academy project toward reality. After discussions with council that we've had, the city has entered into a purchase and sale agreement as of June. With the holding company representing the academy. The agreement stipulates that the sale of the property is contingent upon the buyer completing inspections of the building, council authorizing the sale and as well as execution of an economic development loan agreement, and the buyer paying the realtor's commission fee. The total purchase price is $52,500, of which $50,000 will be subject to an economic development loan agreement, as mentioned. That will be presented to council at its August 27, 2020 meeting. This agreement will guarantee repayment of the $50,000 to the city either through income taxes generated by the school or through via new employment or through cash payments. The remaining $2,500 is the realtor's commission fee. The purchaser has completed satisfactory inspections of the building and has agreed with staff on the terms of the economic development loan agreement. Approval of the presented resolution this evening, 20-W, and the economic development loan agreement are the remaining steps to complete the sale in order for the acquisition to move forward of the site for the STEAM Academy. In our strategic discussions with council, you have made it clear to us and have directed us that we should be advancing the cause of education in our community in order to promote the quality of life that brings, as well as encouraging the betterment of our youth. while improving the competitiveness that we present to prospective employers. You've encouraged us to pursue unique ideas to ensure that Xenia's youth have diverse and contemporary options in pursuit of their educational achievement. So in addition to these efforts that we would normally pursue with Xenia Community Schools, we of course partnered with Greene County Career Center to locate their new facility for vocational training here in Xenia, and now we present this new partnership opportunity with the STEAM Academy. In addition to the educational choice benefits, the Academy will create professional employment and grow our tax base. Of course, beyond this, having another community asset located in or near our downtown presents a real benefit in terms of drawing consumer traffic to our downtown. And finally, there are the obvious benefits to the residential neighborhoods immediately adjacent to that facility, that this is in a transitional neighborhood, this facility location, and this is a great type of use given the dichotomy of the residential neighborhood and the downtown, so it's a great transitional use. So having said all of that, staff is supportive of this. We're recommending council introduce and ultimately approve the resolution that would allow us to proceed with the sale of this former YMCA facility to the former Y Xenia LLC and authorize the execution of agreements and the deed transfer necessary for the transfer of the property. And so we are recommending an introduction of this resolution this evening.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. As a point of order, we'll ask for the introduction first and then followed by any questions. Any of my colleagues like to introduce this tonight? Introduced by Councilwoman Dean. Okay, I'm going to open up the floor for questions. Anyone have any questions at this time?
I'd like to know what the timeline is, if I missed that somewhere along the way.
Yes, we do have with us this evening Dr. Jeremy Irvin, and I think he can probably answer that. I think what Dr. Irvin had told us previously, they're looking at the 2021-22 academic year, which will allow them to continue with the steps that they need, both physically at the site as well as administratively what they need to do and financially. So you're looking at another academic year off that they would be targeting for the introduction. And this would not be a first grade or K through 12 to start with. They would phase this in starting with the elementary age students and eventually growing in the number of grades and total student body that would participate or would be available to participate.
However, as a neighbor, I'm concerned that and happy that we'll probably be seeing additional improvements in the site and the lot and everything. And I know we may even at some point have some participation there because of the contiguous use by the county and us and everybody else in the back of the site, at least until the school does open and does need the space. And of course, I'm sure since we're going to be K through whatever, we're going to have some playground equipment and so forth out there. So.
Yeah, the intention is, I think, intermediate to long term, that there will be a secondary facility that would be necessary in order to accommodate all the students, which I think is part of the ultimate plan that Dr. Irvin and his team.
So actually, at this time, we normally do not do this. We do not usually have someone come to the podium during a line item, but this is a very important project.
It is.
And very unique as well.
Dr. Irving, if you're comfortable and you're prepared tonight, you are more than welcome to address council at the podium. To answer any questions that my colleagues might have, or if you'd like to say a statement on behalf of your organization, you're quite welcome.
There is one other thing I wanted to say as he comes. Now, we know that if this is as successful as I'm hoping it will be, and I'm sure you're hoping it will be, like you said earlier, Mr. City Manager, will likely need a second location. But this location is going to lend itself best for the K through group, because you don't need parking for a K through 6 and 7, and you don't need the parking until kids get in their 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th grades. So that will probably have to be a bigger space somewhere else. But so this is going to be the younger kids right downtown. So, okay, that's
correct. Thank you for the opportunity. And so you can understand me, I'll take the mask off as well. Community STEAM Academy Xenia is been a passion of mine for many years. Been in higher ed and a science and math high school teacher, 7th through 12th grade certified for 27 years, and having an opportunity to bring a project-based, student-centered, linking with community service, entrepreneur, and college and career readiness has been a passion of mine for a long time. And having an opportunity to become a community school and STEM designated allows for this another option for the parents of children to offer them kindergarten through 12th grade. And yes, we will start adding 3 grades essentially every year. Our initial goal is to start with 4th, 6th, and 9th grade, very first year, and it will be in the former Y building as we are getting a secondary building as an option. Now that 4th, 6th, and 9th grade is right now not set in stone, but it's what we're thinking through. Our pro forma is based on it, but based on working with sponsorships of school organizations, it may vary. But 3 grades, each year those grades will continue to retain. We'll continue to market for 3 more grades, so the next year we'll have 6 grades and so forth until 4 years we'll have a K-12. But the intent is, once we have done the major renovation to the YMCA, which is a substantial amount of money, our goal is to have it in the kindergarten through 3rd grade is predominantly there, plus the dynamic movement aspect, the physical education, and all of the physical aspects from 4th through 12th grade would also utilize that same facility. So we would bus the 4th through 12th grade students to that facility for use. So.
Thank you.
It's exciting.
Anyone else have any questions? All right, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yeah. All right, so we got our resolution and our introduction, and our next item is Resolution 2020-X, which is an introduction. This is supporting the Flexibility for States and Localities Act, listed as H.R. 7094, and urging the U.S. Congress to enact said legislation. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, sir. On behalf of the appointed officials, the staff is recommending the City Council take action to endorse House Resolution 7094, known as the Davidson Flexibility Act. If approved in Washington, the act would grant state governments discretion to distribute federal aid, which has already been provided through the CARES Act, to local governments for use in meeting general fund needs. Ostensibly, the Flexibility Act would permit state leaders in Ohio to distribute portions of the CARES Act allotment to local governments to help fill budget gaps resulting from the deep revenue reductions we've seen in the fallout from the COVID-19 response. It's very simply that. It allows that existing money to be used more flexibly than it is today. So staff is recommending council introduce and approve a resolution in support of this legislation that we would then forward on to the appropriate authorities.
Thank you very much. So I look at it as the resolutions on the back page then. Already written?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Anyone like to introduce this?
I will.
Thank you. Introduced by Mayor Mays. Any questions? All right, we'll see that next time. Our next item, item E, is an administrative motion. This is authorizing the city manager to execute amendment number 5 to extend the agreement with Interstate Gas Supply Incorporated through the Miami Valley Communications Council for municipal facility electric supply services. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, sir. Since 2011, the City of Xenia has participated in a regional purchasing group for electric generation and transmission services, specifically for municipal facilities. This agreement is coordinated and handled by the Miami Valley Communications Council. This partnership has resulted in significant savings for the city related to electricity costs for our municipal facilities over the course of this time. The current glut of energy supply combined with reduced demand for electricity in this COVID-19 economic slowdown has resulted in historically low prices for energy futures. As a result of this, MVCC, on behalf of all of the signatory municipalities who are participating in this electric facility supply contract, has negotiated language for an extension to the prior agreement that will lock in really preferential rates through May of 2024. The rate would go from 0.04699 per kilowatt hour to 0.03870 per kilowatt hour. As with the original supply contract and the subsequent extensions through amendments, this amendment requires that all participating municipalities approve the extension amendment in order for the new rate commitment to be honored to all those jurisdictions. So it's an all or nothing proposition. Staff so is obviously recommending City Council authorize by administrative motion execution of Generation Supply Agreement Amendment Number 5 with Interstate Gas Supply Incorporated. This will allow us, as well as our partner communities, to benefit from this extended supply agreement at a much lower pricing.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager.
Happily.
All right, so at this time, we're take action on this.
Is it so introduced? I was just
So I would ask if anyone would like to make a motion to authorize the city manager to execute the agreement.
Absolutely.
Okay, by Vice President Wallace. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Scrivens. Any other discussion or questions? So we're voting tonight to authorize the city manager to execute this agreement. All right, Mr. Duke, could I get a roll call, please?
Vice President Walls?
Aye.
Councilman Scrivens?
Aye.
Councilwoman Dean?
Aye.
Councilman Branham?
Aye.
Councilman Dean?
Aye.
Mayor Mays?
Aye.
President Smith?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you very much. Our next item, item F, is an administrative motion. This is approving the schedule of bills in the amount of $522,813.68. Mr. Finance Director.
Thank you, Council President. There are two large expenditures worth noting on the schedule of bills. The first is related to the meter change out, and the second is for the playground equipment at Shawnee Park. But I'd be more than happy to answer any other questions that you may have concerning the bills.
We have a motion to approve the schedule of bills for tonight.
I'll be
Motion by Vice
glad to
President
make a
Wallace.
motion if I can get an answer to a question on how we're doing with the switch out of the meters.
Yeah, actually planned on talking about this a little bit in the appointed officials report, but it's going well. I would say we're about 2/3 of the way through the installs, maybe a little bit less than that, but very close to 2/3. We will have some continued issues with the timing of the bills, like was referenced at the meeting 3 weeks ago, where there's a timing where your meter may be changed out after the first reading happened, or the normal timing of the reading, and so we're going to put in the reading of the meter at the time where it was swapped out, which may get you, in some cases, 50 or 60 days worth of usage on one bill. And so there are going to be some higher than normal bills, but then that should be followed by a bill that's much, much lower than what your other bill was. And we're also going to work with customers in situations where the usage is not at the minimum billing amount, so they're being charged that minimum bill, whereas had the billing cycle been more consistent, then they wouldn't have been charged that additional amount for what wasn't used. So we are working with the residents to try to remedy some of those situations where, there may have only been 1 or 2 days of usage on the back end of that, and they're still charged that minimum amount. So that's one of the challenges. There was also a bit of a mix-up with some of the irrigation meters. We had talked about irrigation meters before. Some of those were provided to the vendor on a work order to be changed out. We are planning to send letters out to residents to see if they would prefer to opt into those irrigation meters for those residents who already had them, with the $250 fee that we would be charged for that equipment. And we're doing that for anybody whose meter is 10 years or older. There are only about 46 meters in the city that are less than those 10 years from an irrigation meter standpoint. So if your meter's 10 years or older, we are going to request that you pay another $250 to have a new meter installed so that you can continue to be billed for only water and not sewer on that portion of the usage that's related to the irrigation meter. And we are going to work with residents to try to work on some sort of payment plan, or we could spread those payments out if the resident would prefer to go that route. So we're working through those issues and those circumstances where a meter was replaced without us actually talking to the resident. We're going to wait and see whether or not they want to actually keep that meter that's been installed. And if they opt to not pay the $250 fee, then we're going to remove that meter and we'll use that irrigation meter for a resident who would desire an irrigation meter. So we're working through some of those issues. I think that's covering most of the issues related to the change out, but we are making fairly good progress.
Just add that, there have been a couple of issues that have been raised in terms of disputes relative to the change out, where some residents felt that there may have been some impacts to their service. So we have established a process to do some dispute resolution and address that. So just want council to know that we're taking some additional steps to address issues as they arise.
Thank you. I have another question that moves away from the meters, but it moves back. It's certainly a water service question. And we know that during the COVID situation from March to now that we've had some leniency as it relates to water bills and sewer bills. And I think it was a month ago we talked about it, and you said that you have all the flexibility that you need to work with people who might be in a delinquent status, and they're now getting demand letters. So how is that process going? Or have we had enough time to see?
Yeah, so we actually just went through the entire shutoff process. There were a little more than, I think, 650 people on the shutoff list initially. After the letters went out, that number was pared down to less than 250, which is actually pretty close to some of our normal shutoff counts in some of our months. So most of the residents, once they got that initial letter, were able to come in, make payment, bring their account current enough to where they were no longer on the shutoff list. We proceeded with shutoffs as we typically would. There were a few residents who had some issues that were raised, and we tried to deal with them to the best of our ability. I'm not aware of any significant issues related to COVID or the delay that were abnormal. So I wasn't really made aware of any circumstance where somebody said, hey, I've never been shut off before, or I'm rarely, if ever, shut off, and I just can't make this payment because of being unemployed or whatever that might be. Really didn't run into too much of that. Most of the shutoffs were more routine people who had typically been on the list before and found a way to make the payment after their water was shut off so that they could be reconnected. There are certainly still a number of accounts that are disconnected, but nothing that's atypical to your normal month. So I think we're through perhaps the worst part of that restart of that shut-off process. But certainly, if we run into any other issues that are out of the norm, we can let council know.
Would appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr. Duke. Looking, yes, Councilman Scrivens.
Mr. Finance Director, I'd like to call your attention to page 6 of our billing, GFOA. Who is that?
The GFOA is the Government Finance Officers Association.
Okay.
And so annually, we apply for a review of our financial report. Mm-hmm. And so that is the fee that's attached to that review. So they have a board that reviews our financials, and then will opine on what they think of our financials, and typically they will award us a certificate of excellence. Mm-hmm. We're typically very successful in being awarded that, and then they will have a series of comments on how that we can improve our financial reporting in the future. And so we typically in the following year will answer how we incorporated some of those recommended changes. So it's just a way for us to make sure that we're adhering to best practices and trying to make that financial report as good as it possibly could be.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. President.
You're welcome. Looking for a second.
I'll second.
Seconded by the mayor. Any other questions regarding the schedule of bills? Thank you. Can I get a roll call, please?
Vice President Walls?
Aye.
Councilman Scrivens?
Aye.
Councilwoman Dean?
Aye.
Councilman Branham?
Aye.
Councilman Dean? Aye. Mayor Mays?
Aye.
President Smith?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you very much. Our next item on the agenda is appointed officials' reports and council comments. I'm going to start first with city manager.
Thank you, sir. Just briefly this evening, first I want to thank Christina Schaefer, our public relations coordinator. She helped put together the proclamation video that we showed tonight. She did a great job with that, so we just want to acknowledge her efforts with that. And then also with that say that we are in some discussions about some additional videos that we are wanting to put together to serve as a resource for our residents to talk about our water and sewer service, how we prepare those services, what these changes with the meter system will mean, the different or additional type of access and services that will be available to our residents as a result of this meter changeover. So we don't have a production timeline on that, but just again in follow-up to that discussion, let you know that we're working on additional means to convey to the public what we're doing and how these upgrades will really benefit residents for that service delivery. Second, I just wanted to kind of touch on briefly, we haven't done any community videos relative to updates on COVID-19, but I want to let folks know that we have made some decisions in terms of cancellation of some additional events. There were discussions about doing a Xenia Lives concert this fall that would in some respects be a replacement for the Xenia Community Festival, and that's just not going to be an option available to us after consultation with the health department. So we'll kick that back and have a conversation next year. We've also delayed any of our neighborhood night out events that we had scheduled for this month. We'll take a look again as we move into to September to see if that's something we can do. We'll just have to play it by ear. So we continue to want to do some public events, but we are limited in how we can do that. We are, however, looking at some concepts that we're kicking around for an event prospectively for September to do some promotion of our downtown businesses and looking at a community drive-in movie event downtown. So as we get those details firmed up, we'll share that, but we're hoping to be able to do something in September for that. And then we will also be having conversation next month with BRCA about where we go with our hometown Christmas this year. If we salvage no event this year, I think our desire is to bring Santa downtown and in some way safely to present an opportunity for kids to be kids in the middle of this. So again, as we figure out where to go with that, with BRCA, we'll report on that. Other than that, we continue to follow protocol here generally with COVID-19. There's no playbook for this. We're figuring it out with everyone else as we move forward, so we do thank the public for their patience with things. And as always, if they have questions about anything related to this issue or our response, they can contact the city manager's office. That's all I have this evening.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. Mr. Finance Director, do you have anything else you'd like to add?
Yes, so we did talk about the transition to Rita just briefly in regards to the lease agreement. Rita will become the official collector of that income tax effective September 1st. There will be a couple of weeks there where employees are off at training, where there won't be an ability for them to have the face-to-face customer service from a preparation standpoint here at our building. We could certainly still accept payments and those types of things and do our best to assist customers, but Rita won't actually have a presence here for a couple of weeks. But there's a welcome letter going out to all of our residents trying to explain to them some of that transition. There will be a lot of additional filing options electronically that I think will be of great benefit to the public. But I want the residents to also understand that there will still be a presence here locally. They can come in, talk to the folks from Rita. And beyond that, we are still available to assist residents in any issues that they may have with Rita as those returns are being prepared and processed. So we're still going to be very involved in that process and working with Rita to make sure that our customers have the very best experience possible. That's all I have.
Thank you very much. Anything else for our Finance Director?
I expected the city manager to mention why the law director wasn't with us tonight.
She's on camera.
She
So
is.
I had not have been seeing her up,
Yeah.
She's quiet as a mouse there.
She's so we're gonna hear from her now.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Duke, for your report. So next up is our Law Director. You were very tiny on our screen tonight.
Right, that's why I didn't think
That's
you were.
why Vice President Wallace didn't see you, but thank you for joining us tonight. Do you have anything that you would like to add to our meeting tonight?
Well, I just wanted to update you quickly. As I told you at the last meeting, I was going to file a claim in the Purdue Pharma bankruptcy. Was ready to file as a consolidated claim and saw a newsletter go from Eckler recommending an individual claim. I called Price Finley at Bricker Eckler. We had a discussion. I did end up filing an individual claim on our behalf, not as part of the consultant claim. That gives us the right to vote on any plan for distribution of assets. If we were part of the consolidated claim, we would not have that right. I'm glad you're all sitting down. I used the bankruptcy court's calculator. You type in the city and it tells you the amount of your claim, and I filed a claim on our behalf for $15 million. So we'll see.
Can we send that to street repair?
We gotta get it first. Purdue Pharma.
That was for past damages and future abatement of issues dealing with the harm caused by the opioids. Every city in the country filed a claim. I don't expect we'll get that, but that's the amount that the court said we had a right to. Yeah, if we got 1% of that, I'm pretty happy. So I will keep you updated as I hear what's going on in that case.
All right, thank you very much. Anything else for the law director tonight? All right. Seeing none, we'll move on to mayor comments, please.
Thank you, sir. Mayor's schedule has been pretty light the last couple of weeks. It's personally been very busy, but as far as any engagements with the city or on behalf of the city, it's been very minor. So I wanted to publicly acknowledge again Mr. Heitman and Mr. Fry and thank them for their heroic efforts. I was talking to Mr. Heitman afterwards and just explaining to him how much it means to us as a city to have something to celebrate and something positive to look at. It's important that we have things that demonstrate citizens doing positive things here. So very thankful for them coming tonight and for Mr. Heitman being able to come. And I know Mr. Fry couldn't make it, but just something to celebrate and to continue to have something positive. I know I say this every council meeting right now, but I just want to remind people to continue to be nice, to continue to be patient with each other. I know I've personally experienced some people who've made their opinions very vocal and in a very disrespectful way, and it just makes me sad to see folks in our community behave that way. So I just want to keep challenging for people to find ways to show kindness to each other, and the majority of our community has done that, and I'm very proud of Xenia, and I think that we're a good community, but just to keep pushing forward. So I'm excited about back to school and excited for students and the community universities that are beginning, and just want to continue to say to families and just college students who are coming to the area, if we can support you in any way, don't hesitate to find one of us and let us help you. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Mayor Mays. Next, Councilwoman Dean.
I don't have anything tonight.
Thank you very much. Councilman Scrivens.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a few items. Just want to express condolences to the family of Mabel Nard McCombs and to a classmate of mine, Byron T. Hurst Sr. They've gone on to their final reward, and all I can say is while they were here, it was a good run. Just wanted to also thank everyone here on the City Council and in the audience in Xenia. Most of you know that I was off for a while. I had surgery, and I wanted to thank everybody who took the time to send me a card or a letter or a note or to say get well soon. Just want to thank everybody who prayed for me, because I know somebody had to. And just wanted to say it's good to be back in this seat representing the people of Xenia. And the people of Xenia are still special people. And all we got to do is work together. We don't always have to agree, but we do have to work together. So that means we trade horses, we log roll, we give and we take, and we compromise. And that's doing the business of the people. And with that, Mr. President, I yield back. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilman Scrivens. Appreciate those comments. Go back to this end. Councilman Branham?
Yeah, I just want to take the time to thank the volunteers from PZC last Thursday. We met and we approved a item of business for the old Hospitality, would have been Hospitality West property. So that's now going to be occupied by another nursing home, not the previous owners that we had issues with, which is a good thing. I think that's a right move for that location, you know, keeping it this under the same, you know, same occupancy, but also just new owners. Hopefully it will bring light to that property and we shouldn't have any more issues with that. So.
Very good, very good.
Thank you, Councilman
Thank you.
Branham. Anything else?
Nope.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Councilman Dean?
Thank you, Mr. President. I just had a question for the city manager. When is the playground at Shawnee Park supposed to be done?
We've had a couple delays,
Would you repeat the question? I
yeah,
didn't hear it.
You're so soft-spoken, man.
it's the status of the playground equipment at Shawnee Park, and so we've had a couple of delays. Mr. Fortuner's been cracking the whip, making sure that they're moving along and getting some progress. I think we're scheduled for about a week or two out, Brian?
Next week, they should be done.
And we talked about doing a virtual ribbon cutting with the mayor, since we obviously, you know, can't really assemble there. So we'll be looking at doing some type of video announcement for the public to let them know that it's officially open for business. So we'll get that launched here pretty soon.
Thank you.
Yep. It looks good. If you haven't seen it,
It does look very good.
yeah.
Anything else?
Down by there.
What was that?
I need to ride down by there, I reckon.
Just don't play on it yet. It's not
No,
finished.
I won't play it.
None of our kids have touched it at all.
Hey, I know they're trying to do it.
My kids
I'm
would
sure they're
never do
ready.
that.
Thank you, Councilman Dean.
Are you sure Freddie hadn't been down there
I
already?
can't answer that one. I may have yelled at him, okay?
So, Councilman Branham, I'm glad you brought up planning and zoning. Actually, I did want to announce to council that starting the first meeting in September, I've talked to the mayor about this. We feel it's very important as council to be as transparent to the community as possible. And as things are finally slowly transitioning to opening and normalcy, we would like to add reports of council on our subcommittees. So that would affect BZA, planning, traffic, EDAB, and BRCA. I think as things begin to open up, our citizens, even though those minutes are open to the public, I think citizens would like to know what's going on. It allows them to know which council member is responsible for those. So look for that to be added to the agenda in September. Other than that, I would like to thank Dr. Irwin. Sorry, I'm terrible with names, but I had to look down. Thank you for coming tonight, for visiting. We have some members in the audience that are city staff. I'd like to thank those that are watching. At this point, we are going to move into an executive session regarding the purchase or sale of property, pending litigation, and personnel matters to consider appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, compensation of a public employee in our executive session. So to keep social distancing to happen, we are going to stay in this room and we'll recess for 5 minutes. We'll come back. So that portion of our meeting tonight will not be televised, nor when we come back will there be a need for the television to be on. So those that are watching tonight, thank you very much. And we will not ask for a roll call to adjourn. We are just going to simply recess. Thank you.
We'll need to do roll call for it. We'll need to do roll call. Yeah, for the executive.
We do need a motion to recess
For
or just to
executive.
come back.
I'll be happy to make
When you
that
come
motion
back.
along with my
When we come back.
comments.
We don't need one now. Thank you.
If you want to take a brief recess, the chair, the president can call that, and then come back, you'll need a motion, an executive, that's going to go into executive session. But if you would like to take a brief recess before you go into the executive, the president can call that on his own.
And you already did.
So 7